Welcome back. An alarming survey of 2,500 principals has revealed almost half have suffered physical violence while at work. Shockingly, many admitted that parents were the perpetrators.
Let's get today's take on this with 9 News presenter Mark Burrows and 9 Honey's Shelley Horton on the Gold Coast. Shelley, in Queensland, nearly half of those surveyed admitted to being attacked and bullied. I mean, I don't know if your parents ever remarked anything like this because they're teachers as well, but what do you think about this?
So I rang mum and dad straight away this morning, and they said that in their time it was mainly verbal abuse and kind of parents interfering. And my mum said every parent thinks they know how to teach children. And she said one time she replied to a parent, how about I come down to your the mechanics and teach you how to fix a car.
Wow.
It's very, very different. They're highly trained. And I just think that parents are over-involved these days, and I think that they have this entitlement, and that entitlement then leads them to being abusive. And we need to remember parents are setting an example. So if the parents are abusive to principals, if they are actually getting physical with principals, then the kids are going to have the same level of disrespect. So I really think that we need to put a bit more pressure onto the parents. I also think that when parents are being abusive online, that we should be taking legal action because, as we know, when you put something online, that is publishing and therefore you can be liable.
Well, that was one of the other very disturbing findings in this report. Many also admitted to being trolled online and receiving threats as well, Mark.
Yeah, well, I can't even believe these figures, and I can't believe that somebody would actually physically threaten a principal. But this continuing to do trolling and this online behaviour, which is clearly a form of abuse, I find that amazing. That would continue on in a household. It's absolutely amazing. Shelley makes a really good point. When our kids were at school, the school made it quite clear you can be involved up to a certain point, but we're doing this now. You back off. We will look after the kids. We are responsible for the sport and the education. And that was a firm policy, and we had to step back, and it worked.
There are no boundaries anymore, are there? They have the teacher's mobile number, the email address. There's no escaping it, and it's no wonder teachers are leaving the profession in droves.
Also making news this morning, Victoria will move to strengthen its anti-vilification laws to ban the Nazi salute. I believe this is happening as we speak right now, following that shocking far-right protest that occurred at Parliament House on Sunday. I mean, Mark, when this happened in the news, I just was flabbergasted that we just are allowing this to happen. What is going on? What year is this? Didn't we fight a war against this?
I couldn't believe the pictures when I first saw them, and I couldn't believe this talk about banning Nazi salute now. I would have thought that was already been banned.
Right?
I couldn't believe that the laws hadn't been brought into place already, and that here we are in 2023 talking about banning Nazi salutes. I mean, it's just crazy. I also thought it was quite disturbing to see those pictures and seeing the police standing in front of them. It was the imagery there was almost like these white supremacists were being almost protected by the police. That was a really bad image.
This is a trans rights activist march that was happening at the same time too. So I don't know who the police were protecting, but it did look like they were protecting the Nazis.
Shelley, what did you make of these images when you saw them on the weekend?
To be honest, as soon as I saw them, I actually got bile in the back of my throat. Like, I felt physically ill. I was the same as MB. I was just like, how is this allowed to happen these days? I was already upset by the Anti-Trans Rally, and then to add insult to injury by bringing in the Nazi salute, I just felt like it was vile people doing vile things and that they should pay for it because it's just not okay. We've got books that are getting cancelled for using the word, fanny, for goodness sake. And I think now we need to say real humans doing the Nazi salute need to be fined or put in jail.
Well, I know a lot of them don't like to show their face, so they're so brave, those Nazis, aren't they?
Very disturbing, wasn't it? Shelley and Mark, stay with us. When we come back, how many hours should learner drivers complete to gain their licence? It's different in every state. We're weighing in on that next.
Okay, do you remember how many hours you had to complete when you were on your L's, SJ?
Maybe about 50, I reckon.
Gee whiz. See, I don't even
Gee
remember.
whiz. Gee whizzicus. How many did you do in the
I
olden
was
days?
like, well, back at we used to
In your horse and
we
cart.
crank the car up, and that's as long as we can get to. But depending on what state you live in now, it can be vastly different. So in New South Wales and Victoria, it's 120 hours. In Queensland and the ACT, it's 100. It's 50. There's 50 in Tassie, 80 in Tassie, maybe.
80 in
75 in South Australia. That's gone up since when I was a kid. In WA, 50 hours. In the Northern Territory, it's 0. It's a duck gig, but it's recommended that you do 50.
So the hours are reportedly a major barrier for Aussies when trying to find employment, particularly in rural and remote areas. Mark and Shelley are here with us to discuss. Shelley, what do you make of all this? I mean, 120 hours is a lot, isn't it? And it does restrict, some people's ability to get work and to study effectively, all of that.
Yeah. So my nephew just got his license recently, and it was 120 hours, and it's all clocked on an app. So you put in the speedometer and all of that sort of stuff. So it's quite up to date. When I was doing it, I grew up in Kingaroy, remember? Yeah. So I started learning to drive when I was 13. Dad had us in the four-wheel drive on the beach at Fraser Island on school holidays.
Wow.
And I still managed to bog all four wheels. So when I rang Mum and Dad this morning about the teacher stuff, I said, oh, by the way, how many hours did I have to do? And Mum said that she thinks it was 20 paid hours, so with an actual instructor.
Yeah.
And then she reminded me that I needed more because I was such a terrible driver. In my memory, I drove myself down to the police station to get my license. So I think there's a bit of a conflict there. But I probably agree with Mum because I had quite a few accidents when I was just out of school.
It's tricky, isn't it, Mark? Because I think about this from a couple angles. Yes, it's going to be tough for the people learning and they want to get jobs and stuff like that. But I also think about the dads, and you've gone through this now. But I'm looking at like Leo getting his license and it's like, I spent 120 hours in a car with this kid who doesn't know what he's doing. That's a long time.
Terrifying.
Well, I did it with my kids, 120 hours. It was painful. I'm from Hobart, and when I did it, we didn't have cars then. We just had horses. I do remember when I went for my first lesson. I went down the main street of Hobart, and my father was in the back seat. The instructor was there, and I hit an amber light, and I went through it. I thought, be consistent, and I hit the next amber light, and I went through about 5 amber lights, and the instructor said, just pull in here. And I said, I was being consistent, and I didn't get it. That's my memory. But back then, we didn't have to do the hours.
No.
We just applied.
No, I don't remember having to do the hours. You just had to pass the test.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Very good. Thank you both. Have a great day.
See you, team.
Stay
you
with
later.
us straight ahead. 4 million Aussies.